Today's story starts with a baseball game and ends with a love story, with an earthquake in the middle. Let's watch.
Allowing Jose Canseco to score, and he fails to get Dave Parker at second base, so the Oakland A's take.
I'll tell you what, we're having an earthquake.
That was the Loma Prieta earthquake, live on TV. It happened on October 17th, 1989, and it interrupted the World Series. So it was a magnitude 6.9 that occurred about 10 miles to the northeast of Santa Cruz, and it broke part of the San Andreas Fault. There, unfortunately, were 63 people that were killed and more than 3,700 people were injured as a result of this earthquake. There were also billions, with a B, billions of dollars worth of damage done. But in order to understand where the worst of the damage was, we have to talk a little bit about shaking from earthquakes. So the shaking that you're going to feel in any given place is the result of three main things. First is the magnitude of the earthquake, or the amount of energy that's released. Every earthquake has one magnitude, but can generate many different shaking intensities or amount of shaking that we feel. The second thing that impacts what a particular place might be like during an earthquake is how far away it is from the earthquake source. So locations that are closer to where the earthquake is happening generally are going to shake harder than places that are farther away. That makes a lot of sense. But the local rock and soil conditions in any given place can make a big difference on how much shaking is experienced in that place. So soft sands and soils, loose unconsolidated sediment, will actually shake harder and for a longer period of time than hard bedrock, even if it's pretty far away. So that's what happened in this earthquake. There were areas to the north near San Francisco and in Oakland that actually shook a lot harder than places that were closer to where the earthquake occurred. The Incorporated Research Institutions for Seismology, now the EarthScope Consortium, has a really great video about this. Let's watch.
Magnitude 6.9 Loma Prieta earthquake occurred on the San Andreas Fault System near Santa Cruz, California. Ground shaking intensity and resulting damage was strongly influenced by local rock and soil conditions. In fact, the most severe damage occurred in Oakland and San Francisco's Marina District, 100 kilometers from the epicenter, where violent intensity 9 shaking was greater than that experienced by many areas closer to the epicenter. Both are built on mud substrate. A dramatic and tragic example of shaking amplification is the double-decker Nimitz Freeway constructed on bay mud. 4 seconds after drivers felt the earthquake, the Nimitz Freeway shook and swayed, and sections collapsed, taking 42 lives. Seismograms from nearby stations document that seismic waves are amplified by a factor of 2 as they pass from bedrock to sand and gravel deposits, and the amplitude of ground shaking of soft and water-saturated bay mud is 5 times larger than on bedrock. The section of the Nimitz Freeway that collapsed was built on bay mud. The Marina District was constructed on loosely compacted bay mud. In addition, debris from the 1906 earthquake had been dumped into the bay to make more land for city expansion. This weak ground experienced both amplification of ground shaking and liquefaction of water-saturated sediment that caused differential settling of buildings and ruptured gas lines, which resulted in major fires. So, the soil and rock that your house is built on has a major influence on earthquake intensity and potential damage due to ground shaking. Following the earthquake, and during aftershocks, over 1,000 landslides were reported, mostly near the epicenter in the steep terrain of the Santa Cruz Mountains and along the rocky bluffs of the Pacific Ocean.
I promised that this would end with a love story, and I will keep that promise. So this is about a famous seismologist in the Pacific Northwest who's in charge, the director of the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network. They're also a professor at University of Washington. It is Dr. Harold Tobin. Hi, Harold. So he wrote on Twitter a couple of years ago about this earthquake, giving us the love story of his life. So he says, well, okay, the day after Loma Prieta, Santa Cruz was a mess. Jeff Marshall and I ventured up Highway 9 to Summit Rock to look for surface rupture where the ground broke. There was none, but no one knew that yet. We saw lots of slides. He's talking about landslides, ground fissures. Those are places where the ground breaks open, and houses off their foundation. Driving through Boulder Creek, I said I wanted to stop at my friend's house to see if they were okay. My friends weren't home, but their charming new housemate, who I hadn't met before, answered the door. And we celebrated our 28th wedding anniversary last week. In summary, it took 2 meters of oblique slip on the San Andreas Fault to bring us together. So happy anniversary, Harold